أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن سيدنا مولانا محمدا عبده ورسوله. In the name of Allah, the gracious, the merciful, all praise is due to Allah, the Lord of the universe, the Master of the Day of Judgment. I bear witness and testimony to the oneness of Allah, to His magnificence, His omnipotence, His might, His glory, to His being the creator and sustainer of all things, the giver of life, the guider of hearts, the master of the Day of Judgment. And I bear witness to the fact that Muhammad ibn Abdullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam is His servant and final messenger. May the peace and blessings of Allah be upon him and upon all those who choose to tread in his path until the last day. Imam Shafi rahimahullah is considered to be one of the greatest scholars within the Islamic tradition. Known as an individual who contributed greatly to principles of Islamic legal theory, theology, and so much more. That his teachings become formulated in one of the main Sunni schools of Islamic legal thought, the Shafi'i school. Many of you likely practice and follow this madhab. And in terms of credentials, in terms of so many accomplishments and contributions, undoubtedly somebody who is known for all these things and much more. And he says, amongst many of his counsels that he has given, in one particular nasiha, one particular counsel, that if people were to simply reflect, do tadabbur, contemplation, upon Surah Al-Asr in the Quran, then that would be sufficient for them. And this is a chapter that many of us likely have some type of interaction with. We've memorized it, we engage it, we're grateful for it when we're trying to just read as short surahs as we possibly can in the course of our prayers. And its meaning quite often is something that we might even understand and have relationship with in terms of translations and have heard about it again and again and again. But if Allah Azza wa Jal sends this down to us in this concise way and makes it something that's easy for us to have a relationship with, and the generation of the Prophet ﷺ, his companions, and those who came after, the likes of Imam Shafi rahimahullah, make comments on how it is, if anything, the only thing that you need of the Quran, there's likely a lot there for us to be able to take from, for us to be able to draw upon and gain insight from. It sets for us a principle within its second verse, following the initial premise of Wal Asr, that Allah is taking oath by the time. Innal insana lafi khusr gives us an idea from the divine that is generic to each individual reader of the text. That indeed man is in loss, the human is in a state of khusr. Becomes now what is the norm. It becomes what is the default. That in principle, not just in terms of worldly and otherworldly, but thinking in every matter and mode in which somebody can experience loss. The idea of having success as its absolute opposite extreme, a recognition of where you can have gains in some capacities, but perhaps in others have inadequacy. Relationships, family, emotional wellness, self-care. The question that I ask people the most that they tell me I don't know when I ask them and they come into my office are, what are your values? What are your ethics? And fundamentally, they say, I don't know. And then the second is, how do you take care of your heart? What are your outlets? And across the board, I don't know. The word insan gives us an indication that it's speaking to you and I in specific. It's in a singular state. It's mufrad. And it's important to understand that, because you're going to see that it's going to change in the next verses. When Allah is saying that definitively, every person in a default state, that default is that they are in a state of loss. May Allah make us from the mufliheen, those who have real success. But to understand this within yourself now necessitates moving away from anything else and then just doing what Imam Shafi says to do. You gotta use what makes you human. You gotta use your intellect, your organs of cognition. You gotta reflect and contemplate, which is distinct from self-deprecation. That is a tool of shaitan. May Allah protect us from it. Your contemplation has to be one that is willing with confidence to recognize and embrace your own luminosity, to not engage in a place that says everything that I categorically do is terrible, but to be in a sphere where you can recognize what it is that you do well, and where it is that you have areas of improvement, and then to draw from this text what it gives to us in such deep insight. Can we have everyone move up again, please? The room is going to get pretty filled, so if even those who are sitting in the front can just scoot forward, and we can make room for people who are going to be joining us. And so that first verse saying, "Innal insana lafi khusr," speaking to the individual human, you and I, each one of us is in this state of loss as a default. It then carves out the exception, إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. But it shifts now from the individual insan and it goes to الَّذِينَ. So you move from a singular to a plural, and to start the contemplation in a deeper level, why is there this shift? And what does that mean to you and I in our reflection upon it? You as a person necessitate having people around you. You're not going to function in a way where, as rugged as the individualism is, that carves out this modern day shirk of idolatry in the prism of supremacy that tells you you are the center of everything and everything just exists around you, which is completely antithetical to a God-centric religion like Islam. Even if that's the worldview that we adopt, may Allah protect us from it, there's still interaction with people. There's still interaction with the rest of creation. The insan that is being addressed in the initial set of verses shifts now to alladhina, to give a broader sense of more than one person, because you got to be smart about who it is that you spend your time with. And you have to be thinking about how these four qualities that are going to be set forth are not individual, but they are an entire formula that if you want to be the exception to the norm, if you don't want to be in a place where you are in a state of loss, then you ponder and reflect upon how these, in terms of a logical progression, yield for you an opportunity to have the uniqueness of being the exception to the rule. إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. You determine who it is that you spend your time with. You determine what it is that you allow for yourself to be present in. Haya, which we constantly translate as modesty, has a limit, and the nuance gets lost in translation and is considered to be the prevailing characteristic of this religion in terms of what our Prophet teaches us. If you had a definition to it, what it is meant to mean, haya is that Allah does not see you present in places that He would not want you to be seen, nor does He see you absent in gatherings that you should most definitely be in. إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا, shifting from the individual now to the masses, moving from you as a person to many people. You think about the spaces that you frequent. You think about the people that you spend the majority of your time with. You think about it in relation to this idea that this time that you have been given, it's just going. And how and where you are going to determine for yourself the mode through which you are going to utilize it in the best of ways. And that first quality, amanu, becomes the basis of it all. إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا. This is the foundation, quality number one. And the idea is to not just pick and choose from the four. You got to do all four to be the exception to the norm. That idea of faith is not something that is just mere abstract understanding. This is a religion that is rooted in reality. It's not about choosing and chasing after utopian-esque ideals and romanticized notions that are intangible. It affirms for you a recognition that you are in the place that you are, and the person sitting next to you, behind you, might be in a totally different space in terms of how this world presents challenges to them. But fundamentally, we have now not conviction that is about rote memorization where you just spit out words and not really think about what they mean. That as a Muslim, you are somebody who lives a life that is guided by a moral compass. And you now move into a place where you want to surround yourself, but also be the one that somebody is surrounded by that professes something rooted in Iman. The reflection point stems now from an understanding that is not just about the memorization of articles of faith, but what do you actually uphold as a conviction? And the people around you, if you were to start to categorize, not with an air of arrogance, may Allah protect us from it, but just fundamentally thinking to yourself, the people I spend my time with, what is it that they have belief in? What is it that they show us that they value? What is it that they have as convictions? A lot of you got a rose coming into this building from a group of Jewish people that are standing outside. Many of you don't know who any of these people are, but you're part of this community. You have to know your history. When Trump was elected years ago and institutionally implemented a policy that would ban Muslims from entering into this country, and ran on a platform that was heavily skewed in the favor of Islamophobia, this synagogue from day one for years stood every Friday outside in the snow, in the rain, with signs of solidarity, welcoming in people from that first week and going until a pandemic had to keep them. And even if the pandemic kept going, it wasn't because of them that they stopped coming. We just weren't doing Jumu'ah in person anymore. They came back some weeks ago, and they are here because they believe in what it is that they're doing. They didn't stop when it was just a matter of convenience. The momentum didn't get cut off because it was a photo op or something ceremonial. But there was actual understanding of value, what it is that's going to guide decisions. إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا. You can't just simply believe something because somebody else believes it. You can sit here right now because somebody else is sitting here with you. Some of you brought your kids here because they have the day off and continue to bring your kids. Your kids, many of them, are here because you are here. That's not a bad or a good, but at some point, if they come and sit here in 10, 20 years, may Allah make them from those who are steadfast in their prayer, it's going to have to be because they believe in it. And you can't simply do something just because somebody else does it and that's the end, because the external can be mimicked, the conviction has to be subjective. إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا, those who believe. And you can see with our sisters and brothers who are standing outside, from their action in the rain, giving you roses, they're telling you what their value is. How do you see and understand what your values are from what you do, not just what you speak? That qualification now builds into its second term. وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ, those who do amal, actions with consciousness to it, that are righteous. The amal is distinct from the fa'il because the amal, it has presence and mindfulness to it. It's not just done instinctively. It utilizes now what makes you distinctly human, and you bear a presence of your perspective rooted in consciousness in terms of doing why you do what you do. It's preceded by the quality of Iman because it's not a moral relativism that this religion functions off of. You're not doing what is good subjectively to you. You're not doing what you believe is right, nor are you giving that to other people. You transition from the insan to alladhina. The people that you are around and the people that are around you are not about you telling based off of your whims and what you feel and what you think and what you want that this is what is something good. Because it is not good to tell people that they should not marry somebody because your culture says that they're from the wrong city or wrong place of birth. That's not from what Iman teaches us. That's not what Allah tells us. It's not something that says that you are only of somebody of good value and that your actions are good if you chase after dollars day in and day out. Your goodness is not associated to what subjectively someone can understand it to be. It is founded in an Iman that says, I yield to what the divine has taught me in His infinite wisdom. But the two go hand in hand. That conviction has to manifest now in actions. This is not a world in which you are supposed to sit still. This dunya is the place of exertion. The day of judgment is the day in which we are in a place where we're taken into account for what we did here. You can't do anything on that day. May Allah grant us ease on that day. That's the day that you're asked of what was done. And in this, you start to now learn what your religion actually teaches you. You're not in a place where you succumb to those who speak on God's behalf and they don't know what they're talking about. One of the biggest tools that shaitan takes away from you in your ability to have this philosophy in your decision making is by being somebody who engages in the Quran. Many of you have it in your shelves, but you don't read it. And you gotta read it. Because you see what so many others are basing their decisions off of, their choices off of. You see people who are fueled by greed, who are fueled by egocentricity, who could care less that there are still immigrant refugees being shipped from other parts of the country to our city. And people are sleeping in tents outside in the rain right now, and most of New York doesn't even know. There are people whose actions are conscious. They are doing amal, but their amal is not something that is rooted in something that is good. They are looking to fuel what it is that will allow for them to attain what is self-serving at the expense of other people's needs. We need more Muslims who are not scared to practice their Islam. And not a practice of Islam that says that I'm going to go outside and just dress like this. But a practice of Islam that is bold enough to live with a real sense of ethic. That my actions are rooted in compassion. My deeds are based in real love. I am meant to be somebody who is a conveyor of real truth and justice because it stems from my Iman in Allah and not from any other place other than that. The conversations quite often stop here, where we get to a place now where people will understand what is the necessity for somebody in terms of how they relate to faith. But these last two qualities that Surah Al-Asr speaks to us about, they become necessary in being that exception to the default that everybody's in a state of loss. وَتَوَاسَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاسَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. This grammatical form of tawaso, it fits into tafa'ul, which has reciprocity to it. And to understand what it means has to step away from translations that utilize antiquated and archaic language that none of us really use. You could go pick up a book of translations right now and it would say that this is about enjoining people to principles of truth, enjoining people to principles of patience. When was the last time you talked to somebody and used the word enjoined in your life? What does it even mean? The root of this is wal sadiyah. And you have from it words like wasiyah, where we quite often talk about this in terms of like wills and final testaments. The wasiyah can give a great analogy to understanding what tawaso means. I don't know if you've ever been with somebody who is trying to figure out what to do in their last days of this world. And may Allah make the best of our deeds the last of our deeds. They're sitting now and they have to determine not what it is that their inheritors are entitled to. And something you should know is that just like your zakah is due to people, and if you don't give it and you use it yourself, that wealth is haram for you. Your inheritors are entitled to inherit from you. And to understand what that means prior to, and recognizing it as you prep for what is inevitable, but is also something that we don't know where it's going to come. The wasiyah is rooted now in a portion that is there, a third of which you can allocate. You sit down with people who have wealth accrued that they can now sit with you and say, should I give it to this charity? Should I give it to that charity? Should I leave it to these people? Orphans, survivors of abuse, refugees, the formerly incarcerated. But the voice that they are sharing is one that is rooted in such real sincerity and conviction. Because they know they can't take it with them, but they know also that they want to leave it behind in the best way possible. That it's not something that just sits there with no purpose or meaning to it. That wasiyah is rooted in an understanding of love. And other words that stem from this root are about recommendations, counsels, that historically, when somebody knew that they were going to leave from the world, they would also, within this idea of wasiyah, give parting advices to their loved ones that they were leaving behind. That you would sit down with that person who is near to your heart and you would share with them insights that only somebody who knows that what is inevitable is about to fall upon them. And if you can imagine somebody that you love so much that you would want to spend eternity with them. Somebody that you have such a deep care and affection for that you would actually enjoy spending forever with them. What would you tell them? And how would you tell them the last thing that you could possibly say to them in this world? What would be the tenor, the nature of that conversation? The person you love the most and loves you the most, how would that conversation flow? That's what tawaso means. That's what it means to come together in the word tawaso. And it has now a reflexive aspect to it. That the one who is giving that counsel, that is giving that advice, is also willing to receive it. That you gotta surround yourself with people who are not just throwing words at you, but you try to give them something back and they just push you down. But there's reciprocity in it. That I can't be the only one that is there giving feedback. I need my own feedback. I can't be in a place where I believe the hype about myself, and because the power dynamic is in my favor, I can just say and spit whatever I want to, and somebody has the audacity to tell me something about me, I just brush it off or say, who are you to talk to me in this way? You need people in your life that when they tell you that you are screwing up, you're actually able to listen to them. Because what they are coming to you now on in this spirit of tawaso is haqq. The first part, haqq, can be translated as purpose, meaning that you were not made to do what it is that you do. You were not made to hurt people, man. God did not put you in this world so that you could backbite and gossip. Your purpose is not to be a machine that understands its success simply through the acquisition of the world. You want to chase after money? That's fine. The questions that we're going to be asked is, how did you attain it and what did you spend it on? You get to a place where you understand that you have now the ability to be somebody that says to somebody with love and conviction, real compassion, you're not living life the way you're supposed to. You got to wake up a little bit. These things that you are doing, they don't fulfill your haqq. They don't fulfill your purpose. You were made to be somebody who lives much bigger than what it is that you are chasing after. You are in a sphere where there's so much more that you can do. That advice, that nasiha, that giving of counsel is not just about the throwing of words. The commanding of good and the forbidding of wrong is a divine commandment, but it becomes suspended when its implementation renders detriment and not benefit. But that's not what we're talking about here. If there are foolish people who seek to elevate themselves by denigrating you and under the guise of counsel are really just pushing you down, let them be somebody who doesn't have control over you by forgiving for your own sake. But what tawasaw bil haqq means that when you are not upright and you are fallen, who are the people that you have in your life that help you get back up in a meaningful way? Who is it that you can turn to? I have a friend who I went to undergrad with. His name is Riyadh Khan. Some of you might have met him and know him. And there's lots of people who even after today, they're going to come up to me and say, that sermon was nice and your kids are cute and all of these kinds of things. And my kids are cute, mashallah. But most of you are not going to ever tell me where I'm not doing things the way that I should. My friend Riyadh bluntly and constantly tells me always where it is that I am screwing up. And I am so grateful that I have him in my life. When I got married to my wife, and in the first year of our marriage, she told me every single thing that I was not doing right by myself and by others. We had 2,000 people at our wedding. Some of you were there. Just an open invitation, maybe even more than that. And into our marriage, one of the first things she said to me was, you don't really have friends. And I said, what are you talking about? Did you see how many people came to that wedding? And a few years later, I realized I don't have deep relationships. That I'm constantly in a place where I'm surrounded by people that I love very much, but I wasn't actually investing to deepen those bonds. And I'm grateful that I have my wife who would tell me that you're not eating the way that you're supposed to. You're not reading as much as you should so that you can share more with the people who rely on you and cultivate actual depth to your ideas. Who do you have in your life that you're willing to take feedback from? وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ. They remind you of your purpose, and you remind them of their purpose. And then haqq, it also just means truth. This is not a religion that is rooted in anything other than integrity, honesty, trustworthiness, and truth. To be people who speak truth in order to really see truth and to be in a place where you desire and long for that. That you don't let people get away with lying and gossiping and backbiting, and something that is a half-truth. It's not a whole story. It's not the actual that tells you why everybody else is wrong, but you can conveniently leave yourself out of it. The half-truth has a half that's still filled with something that should not be part of our tradition. You're commanding people to goodness. You're telling them if even the rest of the world wants to be in a place where it just exploits and it engages in practice that compromise on ethics, you are Muslim. Be bold enough to be outstanding by not being afraid to stand out. And let your standing out be something that is rooted in real values, real ethics. And the foundational ethic of this religion is just truth. Our Prophet was not one who lied. Don't lie. And don't make excuses about lying. And don't surround yourself by people who are liars. Don't be in a place where you can make justifications for it. You step up to it because the default is what you want to be in a way that is against the norm. I don't want to be in a state of loss. I want to be in a state of success. And sometimes hearing the truth hurts. When Priya said to me that I don't have any friends, I pushed back so hard. When she told me that my sleep is off, I did not want to hear a word of it. When she said to me that I don't exercise enough, I was like, who do you think I am? I played football in high school. And this is why the last quality is of sabr. Because you got to be in a